I'm Amy David. I grew up in Pinedale, Wyoming, at the foothills of the Wind River Mountains, and that's basically 70 miles south of Jackson Hole. It's a little cowboy town, and I grew up on a ranch. Both sides of my family had ranches or farms, and so was out in the country playing in the mud a lot. And I first fell in love with the mountains as a kid, riding horses on pack trips up in the mountains. My parents had a dude ranch, in addition to the grandparents. So got to spend a lot of time up in the mountains camping and just really fell in love with that type of lifestyle. My mom put me on skis in the living room before I could even walk. So kind of like prop you up and let me kind of bobble around with the skis on. And then my parents would take us up this dirt road that was a steeper hill behind our house. And they'd tow us up on this, just a plastic sled. And then we got to stand between their legs and ski down. And I always liked going with my dad more because he couldn't turn or stop very well. So we went a lot faster. So kind of a daredevil from the start. Remember, I always insisted on wearing a little dress on the outside of my snow clothes. So I always had like that girly element to it with my stuffed bunny in the front of my snow bibs. So yeah, pretty fun. And then we'd go to Jackson Hole and I started skiing on a harness and we'd go over the jumps, and my dad had to cut me loose from the harness because he couldn't hang on the jumps. Sorry, Dad. He's a really great skier and awesome to always get us out in the mountains no matter what. Sweet. And then as I started getting older, I was in the ski club and we did racing, and all the way up through high school, I competed in racing. So we'd go after school to this tiny resort called White Pine, just outside of Pinedale, about 10 minutes. And the lifts would be closed, so we would hike up and train on little brushy gates. Just got a really solid foundation of how to technically ski well. And we'd go once a week to Jackson Hole to Snow King, and at night train on the gates up there. So the steep icy slopes. I always had a little rebel side in me, and I wanted to do freestyle, and that wasn't really offered where I was from. So my dad and my mom would take turns driving me to Park City, about 4 hours away. And I just felt so lucky. Just maybe 2 times a year, I'd get to go to the Olympic Park and learn how to jump on the trampoline and hit the jumps. And then in the summer, I'd go and do the water ramps. So I learned spins and backflips. My first backflip was actually trial by error. With all the guys, like, I want to try something new. They're like, "Oh, try a backflip." Okay. So went and, landed on my face a few times, but have a really stubborn attitude. So I just hiked back up and hit it again until I landed it. So just continually progressing that way. And I just loved skiing so much. I would go every single day. Even if my friends weren't going, I was perfectly content just skiing by myself as long as I was out on the mountain skiing. And let's see, I always got asked, well, everybody gets asked, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And so I always felt pressure, like, oh, I'm going to be a doctor, or I'm going to do this and that. And then I met this guy. He's an artist, and he was doing this is a whole other story, but he's doing some kind of sculpture of me. It was a prize for winning a competition. And he took me out to lunch with my mom, and he's like, "All right, so what do you want to do?" I said, "Oh, I think I want to be an actress." So move to that. When you're a kid, you always want to do something different. It's like, okay, well, if I had a magic wand and I could tap it and you could be anybody in the world you want to be, like, think of what you want to be. And then if every job in the world paid the same amount of money, what job would you do? And so I always pictured myself as a skier. I always have pressure on myself, not pressure, but just this internal drive to contribute and do something a little bit bigger. So trying to fuse skiing with like a greater purpose, and academics were always important. So that whole experience is what helped me decide where to go to college. So I went to Westminster in Salt Lake City, and they offered me a scholarship, an academic scholarship. So that helped also make the decision. I wanted to be around people who were really good at what they do and were good at what I wanted to do, which was become a professional skier. So Westminster sponsors the U.S. ski and snowboard team. And so that's part of why I went there, and had this big dream of being a competitive skier once I got to college. And the second week moving there, I went with a group of friends to a trampoline gym. So it was training, trying to get a lot better, and ended up blowing my ACL in half. And so I remember that was just life shattering. At the time, it was the worst thing that had ever happened to me. And little did I know there's a lot more that can happen to you in life as it continues to evolve. But I remember it being really, really hard at the time. I'd never gone a winter without skiing, and it was my identity. And going to college where you're trying to figure out who you are and trying to meet people in the bigger scheme of the whole world, not having that one thing that is your identifying factor, which was skiing, for me was really hard. But I was super determined to come back. And then the next year after recovery and surgery, the fourth day back skiing at Snowbird, I tore the ACL in half again. So I went through a second year of surgery and recovery. And that was, again, super challenging for me for the same reasons. And we can talk more about injury stuff later, but that was definitely a big turning point in the trajectory of my skiing career. So still as I'm going through college, I started working for MSI, which is Mountain Sports International, and they created the Free Skiing World Tour. So again, as I was trying to find how to be involved with those types of things I was interested in. So I started working in public relations and being the on-camera announcer for the big mountain freeride competitions.
Crushing it. I remember you announcing.
Yeah, hopefully it's entertaining enough. But yeah, it was an awesome experience. I learned so much and definitely got to be around the scene. And yeah, that was an interesting endeavor and part of my life. But I learned a lot about media production. And I always had these ideas of what I wanted to do. And sometimes I wasn't allowed to do that. My boss didn't see the same vision as me. And so once I stopped working there, then I'm able to start doing all of those things that I've wanted to do myself, my own creative visions. And so that's kind of a cool way to be broken free on my own and get to pursue what I want to do. I guess now, to bring it back, what I'm doing with skiing at this point in my life is I was lucky enough to get a few sponsors. And so I'm able to work with photographers and filmers and go out and ski with next year's products and be creative, and coaching a ski team now. I did a few years of competing on the adult qualifier tour myself, and just hope to continue evolving and learning more about navigation and avalanche safety and pursuing ski guiding certifications. So that's basically where I'm at right now, and sure, whatever area I can explain or we can go more into.
Yeah, totally. No, I love that. It's a very good articulation of your journey so far and how things have evolved for you. It's crazy how you can want something so bad, and life sometimes will make you be so patient for it, or will kind of withhold some of those things. And it's so hard to be patient in the moment when you're injured, or when you're not, you're like, I know I'm capable. I know I have this within me. I know it's all in the realm of possibilities. I've been around enough people who have done it, and I know that I'm like the same person as them, just, different. I'm me, but it's hard when life makes you be patient. And it's awesome that you have persisted to a point where now you can finally, do what you want to do and go out and kind of one of the cool things about creating media with skiing is it's very much an art. You are still thinking about the video and everything. And especially with you being on both sides of the production or when you worked with MSI, I'm sure that you watched what was happening on the production and learned a lot that way. And, we're in front of it, and it's super fun to be able to create that art and create that vision in your mind and then go out and execute it with a photographer. That's awesome. What has been your favorite part of the journey so far, if you have one, like Westminster, being a kid and being able to go to Park City, or like, is there a favorite part or a favorite era?
Yeah, I think right now is honestly my favorite era, you could say. I'm starting to figure out the business side of it, and I feel like I'm able to really feel like I'm living my dream, honestly. So I feel really lucky to be able to say that because I know not everybody's able to do that in their life. But right now, I finally came to the point where I've figured out what is it about skiing that I truly love. How can I have it contribute to my career and how I'm making a living? And fusing all of that together has been really awesome for me. Where when I went through that phase of competing on the freeride qualifier series, remember the very last one that I did, I was at Revelstoke and I was sitting at the top, and it was all skied out, like the competition venue. So it was all hard pack, and I wasn't inspired by the line that I had chosen or any other line. I'm sure I could have been, but I just wasn't quite feeling it. And I remember sitting up there and looking across the valley at the mountain range over there, that it was just beautiful powder and jagged peaks. And I remember sitting there in my mind, I was like, I need to be out there. Like, that's what I need to be doing, is touring. And so when I came back from that, I've just spent most of my time the last few seasons pursuing more remote backcountry skiing. And for me, it's more intellectually stimulating also, where physically I've gotten to a point where I feel like I'm a good skier. And so being able to add that new element to it and focusing on just backcountry and then combining the media with it is really fun also, where I can create something that's hopefully inspiring for other people to see that as well. So yeah, right now is probably my favorite era.
That's awesome. That's incredible because, sometimes it's easy when you're an artist of any sort to live in the past, or even an athlete. Like, you're like, oh yeah, like that one time I won that competition, or that one time that I did blank. And
Yeah.
so it's so easy to like, and that energy carries forward with you, and you can always come back and find confidence out of it, or, hopefully you can. But that's awesome because a lot of people are, they live in the future or they live in the past, and to be able to appreciate and be grateful for right now is so important in all of life, whether you're a professional skier or whether you work at a grocery store. Like, just being able to appreciate what you have. A lot of the times, what you wished for 5, 10 years ago is happening right now. And sometimes you don't remember that you wished for that,
Oh, totally. That's so true. Like, with these kids that I've been starting to coach, or even with some of my friends that are pursuing similar things, they're like, oh, I don't understand why I can't get, say, like a sponsor. I can't get this job right now. Like, don't worry, like, be patient with it. You have to start now, like, put it out to the universe, put your intentions out. And it's so surprising how you look back and like, oh wow, like, it's actually happening now. Like, how crazy is that? But definitely having patience and persistence, a balance of that is super important. Well, my coach back when I was a kid, so like looking back now, he would tell me, Bruce, he was the best. I was the only kid. It was like me and my cousin were the only kids, and he would stand out there and coach us every day that we would come up to the ski hill. So it's like super grateful for him. But he would tell me, he's like, all right, well, if you want to get sponsored, like, you got to get pictures, get a video of yourself. Then I was like, I don't have any video of myself. So I remember putting together finally, this is like halfway through my career at MSI, when I was on camera even, I still didn't have any ski footage of myself. And I was like, why? I was looking at other people, like, I can do that. Like, I'm a good skier. Why don't I, why can't I be that person? That's one thing that I've been working on lately, because I think it has to do similar with like the adrenaline junkie of being a skier, being an entrepreneur in the same way. It's a bit of an adrenaline junkie where I always want to keep adding new things. So I'm always like thinking of new projects and pitching them to people, like, oh shoot, I just got it. And now I have all these projects I have to get done in a certain amount of time. And so persistent, where I got that. And now it's like, okay, now you need to be consistent, keep all of those going and make them all happen successfully, instead of diluting myself too much by spreading myself too thin. Something I'm trying to focus on doing.
Yeah, I can definitely get caught up in that. When I broke my leg in March, I started two companies, and it was in the idea that one was going to fail, and they both took off. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? I can't, like, for a while there, I was like, I can't handle this. I also signed a deal with a publisher. So, like, I have a book coming out this month, and it was just like, I brought a lot of things onto my plate, and all of a sudden I was like, I don't know how to handle this. Like, literally was working from like 8 in the morning till like 12 at night, and I would take some breaks, but I like stopped going to the gym and I stopped doing a lot of things. And it's crazy because like I wanted to write a book from like 2.5 years ago. And I've always wanted to start to get into public speaking, and I booked some of my first public speaking gigs. And, I've always wanted to be able to manage, like I set this goal a year and a half ago of like owning 3 companies by the time a year rolled around. And then all of a sudden, like I had kind of forgotten about it. And then I broke my leg, and I like had these 2 ideas and just ran with it because I took the ideas and I went into action with it. And all of a sudden it's like, it's all happening. And you're like, oh gosh, I can't even believe that like, I don't know how to handle it all. And it's totally something that I think I can get overwhelmed with. And I can definitely like be a victim of my own like dreams and goals sometimes.
Oh yeah. You just reminded me of something that I always thought about when I went through those 2 knee surgeries back to back. I remember my dad saying, well, sometimes you have to go through these hard things, but it might stop you from pursuing the one thing you thought you really wanted to do at that point in time. But it also forces you to, if you're open to it, to seeing new opportunity. And what I'd give advice to someone that's injured is that take this moment of downtime, like focus on something else, like improve yourself in a different area. And so it seems like when you got hurt, you had a chance to actually pursue those businesses. I mean, yeah, change the course of your life. You never know.
100%.
2 years down the line, you look back, it's like, wow, I'm okay. Like I'm still like, you've got a lifetime to ski, but having that little bit of time to start pursuing something else or to work on your mindset in a different way is, use it as an opportunity. And it's cool to look back and be like, wow, that was not worth it because you got hurt, but worth it because you took the time to do something with that.
Yeah, totally. And it's one of those places where like, you can always find a silver lining in everything. At least I believe that. And sometimes like you need to be able to metabolize the emotions. You need to be able to process the emotions that happen in an injury. And oftentimes as athletes, because we're really good at setting goals and accomplishing them, sometimes you ignore those emotions, and sometimes you're like, no, I'm not going to feel them. I'm just going to keep on pushing, and I'm going to pretend this never happened. I'm just going to get in the gym. I'm just going to keep doing stuff and keep myself busy. And when I learned to slow down and take the signs from the universe that I needed to take a break, that I needed to get out of 6th gear, just redlining it, that everything started to open up, and I realized that I didn't need to even work as hard as I was working for the amazing things to come into my life. I could like relax and be me. And then it all fell into place. It was like one of the biggest epiphanies I had when I broke my back 2.5 years ago. And it took me the longest time to learn because I was like, I conceptualized it, but I didn't embody it. And that was the hardest because then I knew what I was supposed to be doing, but my body still wanted to like, go, go, go. And they're like, oh, no, you got to chill, Scott. But I want to, but no. And then, yeah.
Yeah, that's hard. That's one of the things that's really helped me throughout my life is it's like a little matrix that I try and do consistently, at least a couple times a year. And I sit down and I draw a grid on a piece of paper. So there's 4 quadrants, and I write down both my values and my goals in each of those quadrants. And so I think of it as keeping a really balanced lifestyle. So each of those boxes, there's spiritual, whatever that means for each person, and then intellectual, professional, and then social and emotional, and then physical and health. And so I try and visualize a wheel connecting all 4 of those points. And if one of those is deflated, then your wheel can't turn. And so I just try and always keep in check and be like, all right, am I focusing on each of these areas of my life? Because if you're just focused on, say, your profession, and you're totally forgetting about, say, your social life or your emotions that you're going through, then you're going to feel like you're in a rut and it's going to be frustrating. And so I just try and always keep that balanced. And it's not always easy. That's why you got to continually be checking in and working on yourself on an intrinsic level.
Yeah, totally. And it's easy to get hyper focused on one area, and just like you become unconsciously, you become unaware of the other things.
Right.
And that's an awesome practice to be able to bring yourself back to that awareness, because like you want to be able to have the micro view of things, and you want to be able to have the macro view of things. For me, I have struggled in the last 2 years, 2.5 years. I was really struggling because I started Academy of Skiing, and I wanted people that were entrepreneurial minded I wanted to be around a bunch of entrepreneurial minded people, but I was living in Crested Butte, 2,000 people, and the entrepreneurs were like, 40, 45, 50, all the business owners up there. And I also had quit drinking. And so like I wasn't relating to everyone that was my age, that was there partying, drinking, everything. My best friends became like my acupuncturist, my physical therapist, my personal trainer, and like this woman that worked at, she owned like a smoothie shop. And it was like, they're all 35 plus, that's who became my friends, but I never really got to see them much outside of the, like the work setting where I was spending time with them. And I became so lonely. I became so like isolated. And at the end of the day, like we need those social connections so much. And it's easy to get wrapped up in your craft, whether it's building skis, being a skier, being an entrepreneur, whatever it is. And just like be like, I don't know, for me, I like forgot about my social life for a little bit, and it hurt me. It ended up like, it made it hard for me to continue on, because then I was, like lone wolfing it out there, and I could do it for long enough, but it definitely is super important. And then I'm going through it right now with my physical health, and trying to convince myself to get back in the gym, or, like we were talking on Tuesday, like just convincing myself to go for a walk with my dogs and take a deep breath and appreciate nature. And all of that is like, that's what's, that's my physical activity right now, which seems so crazy, because like the stuff, I worked out so hard in the gym for 2 years. And then I broke my leg, and I'm like, oh, screw the gym right now. I don't want to be here. And now it's like going for a walk is your workout, bro. Like you're soft, but at the same time.
That's okay. You can meditate and breathe fresh air, and at least you're out moving.
Yeah.
I found that theme is really common. What I do in the summer is I guide backpacking trips. And so the women's retreats that myself and my really good friends and partners that own Angie's Dope too, we started those together. And so we take women on backpacking trips for 5 days, and the women are of all different ages, all different experience levels. They come from all over the country, and they start as strangers, and they all come together, and we take them into the wilderness and teach them everything they need to know about, their outdoor skills. And the one common theme that I found of the type of people that are coming on these is they're looking for a sense of adventure. They're looking for like-minded people, so a sense of community, and to connect with themselves again. So there's been mothers who have come on the trips that are like, I just focus on my family and my kids and my husband so much, and her job at the same time. But she's like, I don't know who I am outside of being a mother anymore. And so having that time to reconnect with nature and yourself is really important. Or just people who want to be outside and don't know how, or they've never had the opportunity to. And so just giving yourself the time to do something for yourself too. And the whole, mental health is super important. Even if you're not necessarily struggling with something, but preventative maintenance is just doing what you need so that you can stay happy. That's the point of life. Alan Watts says the point of life is to be alive, which is true. Life is so freaking amazing and beautiful. And it's incredible how nature works in perfect harmony with itself and with us as humans and animals. I just go on for days of how in awe I am of just life and nature, and that we need to take the time to enjoy it, because that's why we're here, is to have a good time and
Not take it so
not
seriously.
take it so seriously. And don't get me wrong, like there's points in life that are really hard and it is really serious, but it balances out, and we need to be able to enjoy ourselves because we have that opportunity to for so long. Well, only so long. We have our lifespan, and you never know how long it's going to be for each person. So to capitalize on it, and
Yeah,
yeah.
totally. Well, a quote that I read recently is like, and whatever you want to call it, but God's gift to you was life. Your gift to God is what you do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is like, it's like just being able to honor the consciousness that you're given, because at the end of the day, like, I don't need to make myself breathe at night when I go to bed. I don't need to make my heart beat.
So cool.
Right? It's amazing. It's so crazy to just be a conscious animated piece of matter in the universe. And yeah, like it's so easy to be like, well, I need this to be happy. If this happens, then I'm going to be fulfilled, and then I'm going to feel good about myself. And oftentimes, like if you look at the entrepreneurial world, like, or income spectrum, like once you make it past like $75,000 a year, people become less happy on average. Like there's a median that people are the most happy with, and then on either side of the spectrum, people get more unhappy. And it's like whenever you think you need something to be happy, you're placing happiness outside of yourself, instead of looking at like, okay, well, what are the things that I do have in my life right now that actually, that make me happy, that make me smile.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Well, my personality it's a combo of introverted and extroverted, but the introverted side, it's where I draw my energy, is from taking time by myself, and that's how I recharge. And I also try to focus on finding what makes me happy by, in my mind, I go and okay, if I have absolutely nothing in the world, if I'm all by myself, like, can I be happy in this moment? Like just existing, and like framing the mindset to find joy in just simply existing and in my own thoughts. And then you start thinking of like, all right, what else makes me happy? Like I need a deep sense of human connection with a certain, type of, with my family and my significant other and some quality friends. And then time outside is really important to me for happiness. College, my thesis was on the psychology of adventure sports. And so I tend to look at it as like self-medicating for happiness, because when you go out in nature and you do physical activity and games like playing, having fun, going skiing, biking, that is excreting the chemicals in your brain that make you happy, the serotonin and dopamine and all of those synapses that are firing and literally making you happy in the moment, where some people do have to resort to other types of medications for that, different reasons. But I try and focus on like, how can I solve this myself, and how can I make myself as happy as possible? And so time outside, that's also why I love skiing so much, is for, all of us skiers totally get it. The flow state, of course, and that moment where your body, your mind, your internal emotions and nature are all firing in complete synergy in the moment is pretty incredible experience. And a
Yeah.
little adrenaline always helps. Like,
Right.
a boost of that while we're at it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's like so refreshing, and it's so funny. What comes to mind is we all think that we want to be comfortable because we think that comfort equals happiness. Like we think that they're synonymous, or like I think that that's a common theme. And it's like we've created this infrastructure of like house and like all of the like electricity and keeping us warm and everything, and like obviously those comforts help us having more capabilities, and capabilities in the world lead to freedom. And I think freedom is a really, really high level state of emotions. Like when you feel free, you feel really empowered. But oftentimes, like, we sit inside and we have the comforts of our home, and people watch Netflix all the time and all this stuff. And it ends up, the comfort ends up sapping our happiness, even though it's like the pursuit of comfort was the happiness. And then all of a sudden it starts doing the opposite. And so it's one of those things where, like, too much of a good thing becomes a bad thing. And I think nature forces you outside of your comfort zone and forces you to adapt, and you have to deal with so many different conditions and external forces where, if you have to know how to pack for it. But also, like, sometimes, you're out in nature and it starts, like, raining, and you gotta like do something about it. And you may not be the most comfortable, but it can still be super fun and super empowering and just, like, so enjoyable. And I think I don't know, nature's so important. I wish more people got out in nature more.
Yeah. Well, that's one of my goals with these women's retreats, taking the girls backpacking, like having that emotional connection with an environment and with these landscapes, that hopefully they'll go home to their communities and be a positive influence with protecting those areas and engaging in nature a little bit more. I think skiing, like backcountry skiing, the sense that, like, in a metaphor for life, is that, like, you're out there and you have to think of how you're interacting with nature, of course, and your surroundings. And then if you're with your partner or your group, like, your decision doesn't just affect you, it affects everybody in the group. And you have to learn to work with other people and communicate. And it's not just a selfish thing where this is what I want out of this day. It's like, okay, well, how are you going to work with everybody to make that happen and to meet the common goal? So looking for the overall common good, how can you contribute to that? And our actions do matter. Like, they do affect the people around us and the environment around us.
Yeah, totally. And I think one thing that I've talked about with people on the podcast before, Hadley Hammer, I think specifically, was the fact that women, it's a common theme, but women in the ski industry, like at the Freeride World Tour, the first woman would go and she would be in or around the finish until the last woman went, for the most part. And, like, you would watch the camaraderie, and then, like, guys go and, like, they leave, like, as soon as it's done, like, and there's still camaraderie there, but it's one of those things where, like, we are really conditioned to think that competition is gonna, like, what's gonna make things better in the world. And one thing that I've, like, witnessed recently, like, referencing the Conor McGregor and Khabib fight, all sportsmanship has been sucked out of that sport because there's a lack of respect for each other at a personal level. And I think that's something that, like, we could really start to, like, I love that you talk about how if you have an idea that you want to, like, execute when you're out with the team, that you have to collaborate together to make it happen. And even if it is, like, a competition during a set time period, I think something that we could really, like, benefit from in society is bringing sportsmanship back and bringing this idea of, like, you're still a human trying your best. And because you're trying your best, it makes me try my best. And so together, even though we're in competition with each other, I honor that you are trying your best because it makes me better, and vice versa. And it's like, that, I think that underlying foundation of what really makes sports and competition so great has been lost. And it's like, when you do, nature's pretty crazy and powerful. And when you need, like, when it comes down to it, it can do things that force you to collaborate to make your ideas from potential into reality. And I think that's it's one of the things that I love about nature, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, every project I've ever done, when I've had the opportunity to collaborate and combine everybody's talents, it's always been just a little bit better if we work together well.
Yeah.
That's always the hard part, is actually getting everyone on the same page. But I agree, like, eliminating the compete and compare You mentioned about social media and how that can affect our day-to-day lives. And I think a big challenge with that is the compete and compare culture, where it's easy to log on and see everybody else's awesome life. And you're like, oh, like they're really getting it today. Like they're out and about. And here I am, like sitting on the computer, or here I am at work. And that can be challenging. It's just not as healthy when you're comparing yourself to other people. So thinking of ways that we can build each other up instead of the opposite.
Yeah, it's super important to be able to, like, going back to the whole, like, if you work well together, and sometimes it's you just at the beginning, I just wrote an article in Thrive Global, I guess it was a couple months ago now, but because when I turned to the entrepreneurial journey, I started finding businesses that needed my services, and some of them were startups. And I was like, oh, well, I know people with access to capital. So like I went out and raised a bunch of money for them, and then turned around and they kicked me out of the company as soon as the money changed hands. And like, oh, it hurt so bad. But at the end of the day, and it was like I raised like almost $200,000 for 3 separate companies. And like, that's a chunk of change. And I had the expectation that, some of that money was going to end up being mine because I was going to provide services for these companies. And then when that didn't happen, I was like, I had to reevaluate it. And one of the best things that you can do is, and I'm doing a talk for my old ski team. And one of the best things that I think they can do as a team, and one of the best things you can do in any partnership, is get clear on the vision and mission and goals that each person has, and see if it aligns, see if it is truly in alignment with the way that if people want the same thing. Because at the end of the day, if 2 people want the same thing, their expectations, or if there's conflicting visions, that can create friction. And then that friction can, it creates dissonance. And then all of a sudden you have arguments, or, you have someone who's hurt because they put energy and effort into something and they don't get the reward that they expected or wanted. And that's like, I don't know, in any relationship, right?
I've pitched a lot of projects to different companies, and some of them have been successful where we have had the same vision, and then it's like, all right, it's a green light, like let's go, and that's awesome. And then I've also had experiences where I've pitched a project to someone and like poured out all of my ideas, and then like never heard back from them. So then at first I get a little bit offended, and I'm like, at least say no. If you're not interested, just say no. But then it's just that uncomfortable feeling of like, oh, is this rejection? And that always stinks, But also I've been working on like taking the moment to accept and be like, okay, well, if it's not going to work out, then you don't want to force it, and you don't want to push your way into something that's really not going to be aligned in the long run. Trying to find that balance is tricky, but also important. That's why I was so grateful for Ski Utah. So when I stopped working at MSI, I had all these great ideas of things I wanted to do. And I finally like got the gumption, like, all right, I'm going to pitch this project to people at Ski Utah that I had done photos with before. That was the Wild Women of the Wasatch video series. And Brandon, who's the content director at the time, he's like, yeah, this is awesome. Like, let's do it. What's your vision? And we lined it all out, and it's just constant communication every year. We like relook at like, what's our goal with this? When we're always on the same page, then we're able to both like create a product that, meets that goal at the end. So that's definitely been one of my highlights, I think, of my career in the last few years. At the beginning of the interview, you had asked me like, when's like the prime time era? And I think once I started doing that, I found a balance of promoting myself as an athlete and as a skier for my own career, but also meeting that internal need I have to add purpose or to help others. And so through that project, my way of helping others is telling people's stories who often aren't told. Or I think a lot of the elite athletes do get their stories told, and they're in front of the camera and in the spotlight a lot. And so my goal with the Wild Women of the Wasatch was to find people who have really inspiring stories, who are competent at what they do, but they might not be in the spotlight. And I think a lot of time those are the most inspiring stories. Wild Women of the Wasatch, that's what it's about, is women who are getting after it in the mountains and also living, interesting lives. I think my favorite one was Gnarly Nurses. where I went and found a few of, they happen to be my friends already. I don't know. I've got a thing with nurses, friends with the, with the skier nurses, but they just absolutely crush on the mountains. And my one friend, Hannah, I mean, she works the night shift and then she's first chair in the morning at Alta, like almost every day. I'm like, I don't know if you should be my nurse because I know you don't ski because you're skiing all the time. But just finding those kind of stories, I think is really fun to be able to give that back and share other people. A lower amount of women in outdoor sports in the media in the past. It's getting so much better now. But for me, instead of like sitting there and like complaining about it, be like, why don't you guys promote women more? It's like, all right, well, I'll just do it then. Like, I'll do it myself.
I love that.
Kind of my attitude with a lot of things is like, all right, well, if you want to see a change, like do something about it, set a goal, figure out how to do it, and then take action and make it happen.
True entrepreneur for sure. Cause entrepreneurs are just problem solvers. Like that's all. You see a problem, you see a need in the market, and then you go out and you find people to collaborate with and you make it happen. Yeah, that's awesome. One of my mentors always says that communication is about seeing each other's point of view, not being right. And that kind of comes back to that whole collaboration idea versus competition. But it's so important these days, like being able to ask enough questions to see things from each other's point of view and then be able to like execute from there. And something that I really wish that we were taught more of in school. My mentor, Nicholas, he teaches businessmen about taking care of their health, relationships, and wealth. And so we are not taught about any of those three in school. We're taught about like these crazy, like these subjects and whatever that are like more tactical rather than these strategies of like communication and creating relationships and taking care of our bodies. And we get it at this really micro level of like biology and like mitochondria, like the powerhouse of the cell or whatever, but then like you don't actually, I don't know, there's so many things that kind of get lost in the education system that if we were just able to like educate ourselves or like as a whole, if humanity was more focused on health first, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, relationships second, then like we'd have an abundance of everything else. Because you'd have a ton of friends, you'd have amazing relationships, you'd be able to get what you want when you want it, because I have flaws that are made up by your strengths, and then you have flaws that are made up by my strengths, and it like all comes together in this perfect synchronistic synergy. But a lot of the times it's lost in this fear of competition and this fear of scarcity. Like if you take it, I'm not going to have it.
Reminds me of what we were talking about earlier this week about comparing like communities with ecosystem where everybody is different, but we all contribute in a different way. And it is a give and a take where, one element in this ecosystem has a strength that another piece needs to take from, or to be given that, accepting that you do have something unique to contribute to the world, but it's also okay to need to take something at the same time. And then focusing on health in school, I think, is huge. Like these high school kids that just started coaching, I keep talking about it because I'm so stoked on it. I feel like really excited about trying to help other people. But with the food thing, just the other day we were talking and the girls are like, can you like teach us how to cook on the trips? Like, you mean what? You don't know how to cook? Like, are you kidding me? And so I hope to be able to teach them like that cooking is pretty cool and it saves you money when you cook at home. It's way healthier. You know what you're putting into your body. Like if eating out still, I love eating out, but I have a hard time with the imagination one. I'm like, great, like I have no clue where this meat came from, like what was sprayed on these vegetables. And when you go out, I think there's like a curtain that gets pulled over and you forget about all that stuff. You're like, oh, I'm getting this nice meal that's served to me, which, it feels great. But when I cook at home, I feel so much better. I try to eat organic vegetables and fruits. And then any of the meat that I consume, try to be super cognizant of where it's from. Or my boyfriend hunts. And so we eat elk or deer, and he knew exactly, how that all went down in a super respectful way. And then my family growing up, we raised our own livestock. So from being a little kid to being an adult, my parents still do this, but we would raise pigs and goats and cows, and that's what we ate. And we knew that that animal had a really great life, and we knew that what they put into their body. So my favorite quotes is, "You are what you eat eats."
Yes.
So whatever is sprayed on the vegetables that you're eating, whatever food is put into the cow, or hormones or antibiotics that you're then putting into your body. I just hope that new generations are able to take that on and be educated about what they're putting in their body. So it is really important, and it affects your brain, and it affects the way you perform on a physical level too.
Yeah, 100%. It's super important. And there's like so much to dive into there. I try to eat as much locally sourced fruits, vegetables, meat as I possibly can. I try to track the source. If I eat out, there's like maybe 5 restaurants in the Front Range area that I'll eat out at. They're all like locally sourced, no antibiotics, no hormones, all organic. Yeah, I love the quote, "You are what you eat ate." I think Tim Ferriss says that in one of his podcasts, one of the ads that he has in his podcast. And I've listened to a lot of Tim Ferriss. I don't know if you've listened to him at all. He's really cool. He's got a really cool mind. Nutrition is super key to mental and physical health, and even like emotional and spiritual health. And for me, at least, and something that, I've been talking about more and more with people is like, you can change the molecular structure of water by the emotion that you feel around it, which means that you can manipulate the electromagnetic field of what's around you. And so one of the things that I really try and focus on is, even when I go to the farmer's market, I try and find the people who are really stoked to talk about their food, who are really excited. And yeah, exactly. Because if they're passionate about talking about their food, and like not trying to be a salesman about it, but just like truly passionate about what they do, then their food was grown with passion, and their animals are raised with passion. And I think even like that intentionality, it's like a third, factor that you can add into it. And that's one of the things that, like, because I've worked in the food service industry. I was a sushi chef, and I worked at like a bistro, like a high-end bistro in Gunnison. And if you're not intentionally like serving the best food all the time, like I couldn't do it unless I was like showing up exactly the way that I wanted to. But when I blew my ACL, I found this cream, and I like mixed these 3 creams together, and I would like take turmeric pills and empty them out into this like cream, and then like combine them all. And my knee was like bright orange for like 2.5 months. But I ran a 10K like 2.5 months after blowing my ACL, which is like unheard of, It's crazy.
So you would rub it on the, like, topically, or take it? Okay.
Both, for sure. But turmeric, ashwagandha, I'm all into adaptogenic herbs right now, and nootropics like mushroom elixirs, lion's mane. I put lion's mane in my coffee all the time.
Lion's mane, that sounds exotic.
Right, doesn't it? It's like a mushroom, literally. Like I take it. It's another Tim Ferriss. I'm going to send you some Tim Ferriss podcasts because they're just wonderful. But I found out about it from a Tim Ferriss podcast, and now I use it. And like, if I ever need to get anything done, take some lion's mane and some chaga and drink some coffee, and like, that shit's done. Like, it's the hyper focus. And it's
you drink some mushroom coffee.
That is similar, same thing.
Right, and I didn't like it, but I could get why it's great.
Yeah,
I can taste the mushroom too much, I think.
Yeah, totally. I have like totally gone past this idea. Like, I love cooking. I love eating delicious food, but like, I'll eat nasty tasting kimchi. I will eat, like, if I know that it's going to be good for me, I don't have any qualms of like just eating it, making it happen, because when I broke my back, I started to get into biohacking and all these things. And like, I like the glasses that I wear, they just block out blue light because I'm on the computer so much. Like I don't need glasses for any reason, but I'm on the computer so much that I have, blue light blocking glasses. I do intermittent fasting. So I don't eat until like 3 p.m. most days. And I only eat in a short window.
Is that like a ketogenic diet?
No, but it can cause ketosis in the morning, but I've also messed around with the ketogenic diet. And I'm not on one right now. I was a while ago. But like I geeked out, like got all into the science of the ketogenic diet. Intermittent fasting is like windowed eating. So I only eat in, I don't know, 5 to 8 hour window generally. So I'll start eating at 3 and I stop eating at like 10, hopefully before that, if I'm going to bed early enough, which I haven't been lately. But there's an enzyme called NRF2, and it only is produced when you give your body the ability to fast. It causes your mitochondria at a cellular level to be able to regenerate. Most of the time when two mitochondria come together, it'll be like a really powerful one and like a slightly, call it injured one. And they come together and they'll make like two average ones. But when you fast, it actually gives your mitochondria the ability to regenerate. So at a cellular level, you're more powerful, and then that transfers up the system. I have experimented with so much stuff like UV saunas, like freaking cold showers, Wim Hof breathing, meditations. Like I've gone and explored all the esoteric, like Kundalini breathing and yeah, all sorts of stuff. I love that you brought up turmeric because it just like set me off on this.
Yeah, no, it's great. I love it too. That's so the other day, Jeremy and I went and got massages, which we never do, but finally working out like super hard and cutting firewood. And so it's like, all right, we deserve this. And interestingly enough, the lady who was his masseuse has this device and like separate, it's called the Hocket. And it's like a little space shuttle thing. We went and saw her and tried it out, and you sit in it and it totally covers your body completely. And it pumps out like ozone and electromagnetic waves. And so it's supposed to be like stimulating your body in different ways and in a detox. So it's weird, like this, all of the toxins in your body get pushed out through your pores during it. And I don't know all of the details and science behind it, but I think it's supposed to be really good for you.
I will definitely look that up. One of the things that helped me when I was healing from ACL surgery was I also went in the hyperbaric chamber a lot. And that like not over oxygenating, but hyper oxygenating my blood seemed to help so much with the healing process and allowed me to run a 10K after, 2.5 months after knee surgery. My physical therapist was not 100% stoked, but whatever. What else do you do as far as like, you said that you wake up and you guys do morning smoothies. So what else do you guys do for fitness, nutrition, routines, mindset, meditation? Like what do you do to take care of your mental, physical, spiritual health on a daily basis?
Okay. Well, it starts out in the morning when I used to be really hard on myself when I wouldn't immediately get up with my alarm clock. And so that just like being hard on yourself in the morning for something so simple and small is like, it just starts the day off negative. So I accepted that I loved sleeping in a little bit in the morning. So I don't know, it just feels good. Like once you wake up, you're like aware and cognizant of how comfy you are. So I decided to turn that into my meditation in the morning. So flip it into a positive way. So I set my alarm a little bit early, about 30 minutes before I actually need to get up. And so my mind is awake, but my body is still relaxed. So I'm able to be fully within my own head at that point with no other distractions of the day yet. And so I focus on 3 things that I am grateful for, just in general. And they might be, they change every day. And then I focused on 3 positive intentions for the day. And those are the main things that I just like to focus on as I'm laying there and just like enjoying the morning and being comfy and cozy and just starts my mind and my attitude in a good place. And then coffee. I love coffee. That is my one constant throughout. So those two things, that morning intentions and coffee are the two things that I do no matter what. In the summer, I had mentioned that I backpack guide. So I'm sleeping in the mountains almost half the amount of time that I'm sleeping in my bed. So it's something that I can have consistent wherever I'm at. Or in the winter, if I'm traveling for skiing, I just love that warm coffee and just sit and chill in the morning and relax. And then I'm ready to go. So nutrition wise, then I go into smoothies. I love smoothies. Just put in frozen berries, spinach, ginger, turmeric, orange juice. And I have this herbal multivitamin stuff that I get, and I just put it in there. And then the other ingredients vary based on, what sounds good at the time, whatever I have in the fridge, pretty much.
Yep.
One of them is like dump it all in kind of for people with some kind of structure, but so it's not totally nasty.
Right.
Brown smoothies aren't the best. But anyways, yeah, smoothies are really important. And then food, like I had mentioned before, is just trying to eat vegetables and protein, so healthy meat and things like that. Try and stay fed. I love food. Drinking lots of water. Fitness. I am right now doing the Mountain Ready program. So it's a little bit more new. If you go mountainready.com is where you can find it. They just launched their new website today. I've been working with the strength and conditioning coach at the University of Utah, and we work remotely with each other because I'm in Idaho. But he's able to customize this strength training program for me based on my goals that I have for each season. And so the last few months, we've been building up, and each week it's a little bit different, but the overall goal is so that I can go and climb mountains, day after day in a row. If I'm on a trip or an expedition, I'm going to be touring or climbing, and have the endurance to keep doing that, but then have my muscles super strong and able to handle a lot of that lactic acid. The downhill skiing is like one of the closest things to powerlifting. Your muscles are just firing hardcore the whole time. So we've been figuring out how, well, he knows how. I've been learning how from him, how to balance that endurance and then having your muscles able to like flush those acids out, so you can perform at optimal ability when it counts. Mountain biking is huge for me in the summer. And then backpacking. So as a guide, I'm carrying a lot more weight. So I've got like 50 to 70 pounds on my back, hiking like 5 to 10 miles each day. So that's just a lot of physical work, which is great. And then chopping wood is good. So you're like hucking, these heavy pieces of wood in different directions and over uneven terrain. And so I strength coach calls it country strong.
Yeah.
So they're like, yeah, we're country strong from Wyoming.
Oh, yeah.
They definitely have a little redneck in me, so that comes out. And yeah, those are the main things that I love to do. And I've been focusing on more intentional stuff in the weight room in the gym too. So it's super fun. I get a little addicted to working out sometimes once I get into it, but it just feels so good. And I can feel my body being stronger and healthier, and that motivates me to eat healthier. And I've noticed also for health, I've been drinking a lot less alcohol in the last few years. Something about the free ride tour, part of your job or part of my job on that tour was to help host the parties and do all that. So I think the partying scene kind of was not healthy. I never got into drugs at all. I was just drinking alcohol, but I definitely know that I've done a little overboard with that sometimes, and it's just detrimental overall to everything. And so the last few years have been really great, where I'm focusing on the bigger picture in life. And I definitely love beer and wine and like to go out with friends, but just keeping it to a minimum. I've noticed physically and mentally I've improved a lot.
Yeah, I totally agree that alcohol can distract you or take you away from, like I would get a little too wrapped up in the party at night and in that celebration, and then it would carry over into the next day and I wouldn't perform quite at like the level that I wanted to. And so for me, it's been 2 years and I don't know, a week basically since I've had any alcohol. And part of that was an instance where I just had, a 6-month stint of things that I've talked about on the show a little bit where I got slapped by life. I was like, everything bad that could have happened did. I broke my back. We lost Jordan Niedrich, got in trouble with the law. And it was like, that ski season, I didn't drink at all. And I made a lot of progress with what I was doing. I had just consciously made the decision, like, I don't want to be drinking alcohol, and then broke my back. And it was like 3 weeks after I broke my back, I had a little bit of alcohol. And then when Jordan passed, I didn't know really how to handle it. And so I definitely drank a little bit more then to just try and run from my emotions. I was like trying to metabolize them, but I couldn't. And there was like a lot of high stress situations. And yeah, alcohol is such a huge part of the mountain scene. And a lot of ski towns are like drinking towns with skiing problems. It's the joke, or it's like cliche, but it's the fact that they are, like, it does end up kind of being a drinking town is, I think it's detrimental to a lot of people actually living a really healthy, like mentally healthy and physically healthy life. And, there are benefits to drinking alcohol when you do it in moderation, but that's another thing that we're not ever taught by, certain parents teach their kids, but, a lot of like these crazy parties that happen, people aren't taught how to drink moderately. And, being able to understand moderation is like it's a superpower really, because like you can get addicted to working out and then you don't give yourself any time to recover. And then you're just hurting yourself with working out. Same thing can happen with alcohol. Same thing can happen like with skiing. If you get addicted to trying to, progress at a certain level, then all of a sudden you're wearing your body down and you want to like learn the double flip before you've done 100 single flips. And all of a sudden you end up hurt. And it's like, yeah, it's really easy to get distracted or away from the moderation that, especially in this day of instantaneous success, like everyone wants just like quote unquote instantaneous success. Everyone wants this instantaneous validation and this like get rich quick or this validation from social media and everything and instant gratification. And something that we forget is like people work 20 some odd years of their life to become an overnight success.
Mm-hmm. Well, when I lived in Salt Lake, I definitely would go out. Like that was part of what my friends and I would do, or like with the ski culture there is like, you go out and party and have a good time and drink a lot. And I really think, well, I had a lot of things. Like you said, life slapped you in the face pretty hard. Life like drop kicked me super hard. And then like kicked me a few more times while I was down. Luckily, I have an overly optimistic attitude. I guess like to finish touching on the alcohol part, though, like during that part when I was down, which we can totally talk more about, but I tried to pump the brakes on the drinking so I could really like feel all of that and take all of those emotions in. And then as I started to feel better, I definitely was like, oh, like, I feel great. I need to like be happy. Like, let's go out with our friends and like drink more. And then I started dating Jeremy a few years ago and then moved to Idaho, out in Sun Valley. And it's been so great to like get back to small town. And like, I focus on what I care about. I care about my friends and like having fun with them. But my point is that I can do that in a different way where Jeremy's really good at like wanting to go to bed to wake up early so we can like go and like mountain bike at 6 a.m. or 8 a.m, not always 6. Let's be realistic. But yeah, like together it's been really awesome where like if we don't really go out and drink a lot because then we can't get up and do things during the day because hangovers suck. Like they're just not fun. And it's like, finally I learned that, And so I've really enjoyed these last few years of being able to focus on like the beautiful parts of life and then still being able to go and have fun, of course, with your friends. But I'd rather do that out on a mountain bike ride or ski touring for the sunrise versus feeling like crap the next day and like wasting the day. So yeah, that's been like a good way for me to, I don't know, grow up in a little bit of a way, Yeah. Moderation is key. So still do the things, that are fun and that you enjoy, but take it in stride.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly. And it comes back to what we talked about a little bit earlier, is like honoring consciousness. And consciousness is dictated by your physical body, by the vessel that you live in. And when you have a hangover, it's not fun to be conscious. Like, you want to just sleep or
Yeah, the conscious
whatever.
thing is huge. Like that's one thing. I've done a lot of seminars and workshops for girls, really from I I won a pageant back in the day. It was Miss Wyoming, Teen USA. So
Yeah.
which was actually a really awesome experience. And that could be a whole different podcast in itself for the different reasons that have to do with pageants. But through that, I got a lot of opportunities to speak to groups of girls and to talk to them. And the one thing that I always remind them or tell them is you choose who you are and you get to choose what you tell yourself every day. Like you choose the narrative that's going on in your head. And so that consciousness is like, capitalize on it. Like you get to decide what goes through your mind at every second. I know it's not easy and the mind like can take control over you sometimes, but focus. And I always say like, I am blank, like I am, I will be, and like fill in the blank. And you get to choose that narrative every day. And so choose positive.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Whenever I've been injured or I've gone through really shitty things in life, which happens to all of us, like it's part of life. Like you're going to go through some hard times. But one of my favorite things that I've always remembered, I can't remember who said this, but I've learned that 10% of your life are the uncontrollable circumstances that happen to you that you have no control over. It's like, sorry, this is happening right now and you're in it. And then the other 90%, which is a lot, is how you choose to respond to it, how you choose to react. And it can go either way. Like it can go 90% really unfortunate based on your actions, or it can go 90% really awesome. And so that's how I've tried to get through everything that I've gone through in life. It's just choosing, like you're in control of yourself. So
Definitely. That's one of the things that I'm talking to the ski team about, is like, you really only have control over yourself. And there are, things will happen outside of you, and you may pre-release because you're on markers or whatever, and it's like, you can either choose to get angry about it, or you can choose to learn a lesson about it and say like, okay, well, I need to make sure that my boots are cleaned off a little bit better. I need to turn my binding, my din up a little bit more. And, I need to make sure that that weight is on my outside ski before, on every turn, and being very careful of what follows the words I am. Like, I love that you're intentional about it, but it's so easy to be like, I am, and then fill in negative, fill in like, oh, blank and blank, blank. And it's like, so many people talk to themselves that way, because we think that that's what's required to make us better, or to motivate us, or to, whatever it is. And it's not beneficial. It is beneficial to understand that it isn't a place that you want to be, but then find power in like being able to relax into like, okay, everything that I'm going through right now is just a tool or a lesson or an experience that I can leverage in the future to either help other people, help myself, or to, become a better person in society. And like you said, we all have bad things that happen to us, and life's not easy for anyone. It's not easy for a single person.
it's not fair to like compare like, oh, you just twisted your ankle and you're upset because you're on the couch for 2 weeks. Like, maybe that's the hardest thing they went through. Like when I hurt my knee, I thought that like life was ending. I was like, this is crazy. Like I've never felt this kind of like frustration and sadness before. And I thought that was the worst thing. And then a few years later, I realized that, oh, like I was okay. Like it's all right. But it's still okay to like feel down in moments.